Good day, and welcome to this demo on Schema datasets. So within this video, I'm going to be talking about just the basics of what a Schema dataset is, how to define the Schema dataset, looking at setting default values, and binding against fields within the dataset. So here we are on a very basic test view page where I've just got a couple of inputs. I've got my username, my disabled username, and then my age field. And so if I come in here and I type in Kieran, for example, you can see my disabled username, which is binding to the same field on the dataset, updates accordingly. And then here I've got this age input that has a default value of 10, which is a number input, so I can change this to 7, for example, or even 77. So let's go and have a look at how we've defined the schema and specifically look at the dataset behind the binding of this data. So here we are within the schema itself. I've got some basic variables, translations that I'm binding against on my inputs. Here's my dataset definition. And then here's my body with a couple of elements that we saw. This is the initial input with the username that's editable. Here is my bound username that was disabled, so I couldn't actually edit it, but it bound to the same dataset field as the initial input. And then finally, here's my age input. Now, on these inputs, you'll notice there's field properties. And these field properties are referencing model.username, for example, or model.age. And this is just pointing to the relevant dataset field, which we're going to have a look at now. So just scroll up here a little bit. Here's our dataset definition. It is very basic dataset. You get more complex datasets where you can have nested datasets or bring in collections or data sources. So for the purposes of this demo, we're just going to be looking at a very basic dataset definition. Now, you can also have multiple datasets, but yeah, we've just got one single dataset here with ID of 0 and the name of model. This is sort of a convention to say that the initial dataset that we have gets a name of model. And then you can see down here we're binding against model dot whatever field we're looking to bind against. So here's our field definitions on the dataset. And here you can see, so here's the one field which is the username. And here's our other field, which is age, which has a default value of 10. Now we can also come in here and set validations, conditional validations, etc. But we're going to look at that in a follow-up demonstration. Just for the purposes of this demo, we're going to be looking at this is the general structure of how you would define a dataset, and then how you would then go and bind against those values within the dataset. So if we had to come in here and add another field, for example, called give it a name, and we're going to define this field as location, for example, and then I'm just going to copy this field and bring it down below. Now this is also going to be a text field. We're going to give this guy a translation of location. Come down here, and then the field that we're binding against again is model dot whatever field name we have. So in this case it's location, and we're going to keep it as a text input. And if we come back here to our example and we just refresh this guy, there you can see our location field has been brought in. You can type in South Africa, for example. And then we can actually see this data come through, because you'll notice here, or rather here, there is no like value property on a field. However, on the schema, the inflated schema, if we just get a handle on the form, we say $0.model, see this thing has a model definition, and here are the corresponding values. So here's our age value, here is our location, which is currently set to South Africa, and then we do not have, Well, here's our username, which is currently undefined. So if I give a username to this and I say Kieran again, and then we just recall the model, then we should see that value come through. And there it is there. But yes, so that's a very basic look at a dataset definition, a very simple dataset. I think in a follow-up video, we'll begin to look at how to set defaults and validations, and then following that, probably hooking in custom action triggers and custom action events. But thank you for watching this video on Schema datasets.